So, what does it really mean to be a Christian? Ask any number of believers, and you'll get as many different opinions. The thing is about Christianity, anybody can be a Christian, and you can't really argue with what they say makes them a Christian. And again, you may say, well, my idea is the right one and my understanding is the right one, and I get you. But again, in today's world, and with all the different churches and all the different understandings, and with Christianity being so malleable, the label Christianity, and there being so many pathways within Christianity that seemingly take you through the door and into the relationship or into that status with God, you ask any number of professing believers who go about Christianity in their own way, and you'll get all sorts of responses. And some may say, well, to be a Christian is to have prayed a prayer. To be a Christian is to have walked down to an altar and to have felt something in a service at a certain point in your life. Some may say to be a Christian means that you have been baptized in a very specific way. Some may say it's that you went through a certain series of rituals and rites as a part of your church, and they were administered by people who authenticated or who validated your faith. It wasn't something that you just did on your own as you felt. It was something that the church was very hands-on and very constructive with. And again, you ask any number of professing believers, and you'll get so many different responses. And again, you can't really say to them, well, that's not Christianity, because to them they say, well, that's what the book says, or that's what the church says, or that's what I felt. And I'm sure a lot of people's experiences play into this. But here's the thing. It's real simple if we just go to the Bible and we look at the source about what the Bible says about being a Christian. Of course, we know that the label Christian is only mentioned twice in the Bible, once in reference to a group of believers being called Christians, and another where Peter basically says, as Christians, you're going to be persecuted. But the label Christian is not really something the Bible talks about a lot, or there's not a verse that says, if you do this, you'll be a Christian, which would help simplify some things in today's world. But again, it's not that complicated still yet. If we go to Jesus, he makes it very clear what it means to be a Christian. Of course, Christian means to be Christ-like, or to be belonging to Christ, Christ being Jesus. A Christian is a label that we use to describe people who believe a certain thing or behave a certain way. But really, when you get down to the biblical basics of it, there's a better word than behave or even believe. Jesus, when he began his ministry, Jesus used a very specific word that we just don't hear enough. Preachers don't use this word enough when calling people to become Christians. We use all sorts of, labels and all sorts of terminology and all sorts of imagery, but we just don't use this word enough. And the word I'm talking about is a word that you can find in almost every chapter of the Gospels, and you hear come out of Jesus' mouth so many times, especially when he's talking to would-be believers or would-be Christians. The word I'm talking about is follow, or maybe better, followers. That to be a Christian, in the most biblical definition, is that you are a follower of Jesus Christ. Now, here's the thing. If I'm following you down the road, that means that I'm tracking you. That means I am in your path. That means that I see you and I am going behind you. If you're describing someone as a follower of a certain ideology, a certain political bent, a certain career path, it's not hard to understand what that means. It means that person is going down that path and they are on the heels of someone who is leading them or some institution that is leading them. Yet within Christianity, we've made it so complicated that we fail to use the terminology that Jesus used. Jesus defined Christian, or defined belonging to him, with this very simple terminology. It means that you follow him. What does a follower of Christ do? Well, it means they follow Jesus. That means where Jesus goes, you go. That what Jesus is doing, you are striving to do. Again, anybody can say, I believe. Anybody can say, I behave a certain way and I do certain things. But it's not very easy to fake following. Again, following isn't about what you do one day a week. Following isn't about what you did so long ago. Following isn't about all these different rites and rituals and all these fancy things that we Christians often hide behind. Following's real simple. Following is real practical. If you follow Jesus, that means you are walking behind him and you are doing the things that he would have you to do. You're going where he's going. You are focused on what he's focused on. And Jesus made Christianity so crystal clear that it's almost impossible to mess up, yet we still do it. When someone says, I'm a Christian, it doesn't mean that they believe a certain thing. It doesn't mean they behave a certain way. If you are truly a Christian, you are saying, I follow Jesus. So where Jesus is at, I'm at. Where he's up, what he's up to, I'm up to. What he's into, I'm into. Where he's going, I'm going. And if you read the New Testament, that's what Christianity is defined as we are following Jesus. We are focused on what he is focused on and what he is prioritizing. Jesus, in one of the most famous sermons, he preached this in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. There's even a version of this in John, though the language is a little different. Jesus said to a very large crowd one day, if anyone would be my disciple, if anyone would belong to me, if you want to be a Christian, deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me. So Jesus made it very clear that if you're going to follow him, you're going to have to unfollow some other things. You're going to have to unfollow yourself, unfollow this world, unfollow all the agendas that pull at you and try to steer you in one direction or the other. If you are going to follow Jesus, that means you've unhitched your wagon from someone else who isn't Jesus. See, you can believe multiple things at one time. You can behave one way on Sunday and another way on Monday. You can believe this on Monday and believe that on Sunday, but you can't halfway follow Jesus, or you can't, fake following Jesus. You are either following him or you're following someone else. Because when you're on the highway, it's only really possible to follow one vehicle if you're in your lane. And if you try to follow two vehicles at the same time and straddle the lane, that's not going to end very well. But if you're in a lane behind another car, the only car that you're following is that one. So here's the thing. You can't fudge, you can't fake. You can't weasel your way in describing this and defining this. If you're following Jesus, it's going to be pretty obvious. So why don't we use that language more often? Why don't we say to people when we're talking about our faith, I follow Jesus? What does it mean to follow Jesus? It means, hey, I've denied myself. I've unfollowed everything else. I've unfollowed this world. I've unfollowed political agendas. I've unfollowed financial, aspirations that are not in the kingdom of God. I've unfollowed my plans, my kingdom, my will. I am following Jesus. Jesus even said, for whoever wants to save their life, you're going to lose it. As in, no matter how hard you work at saving your life, you're going to lose it. Nobody is going to live forever. You can go to the best doctors. You can have the best diet. You can exercise. Eventually, you lose this life. He says, if you know you're going to lose this life anyway, why not lose it for a cause? Why not lose it for someone who can take you beyond this life? He says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his own soul? What would you give in exchange for your soul? When you follow things, when you follow someone or something, a bit of your soul goes with that, right? If you're deeply in love and you're following someone, doing everything for that person, you are tethered to them. If you're deeply focused on certain agendas and certain things in this world, part of you goes with them. And Jesus says that your soul is more valuable, too valuable, to spend it on these things that don't have the aspirations or the ability to lead you somewhere better than where you are. You're going to follow me, Jesus says. So as a Christian, here's the thing, or as a professing believer, if you want to really get to the heart of the matter, you want to examine yourself and examine where you are in your faith, just ask yourself this question: am I following Jesus? You can't fake that. You can't say, well, yeah, I'm doing this, but I believe. No, it's either you're following Jesus, and I think a lot of people have false senses of salvation because they were told, listen, here's what you got to do. You got to pray this prayer. You don't have to mean it. You don't have to be intentional. You got to pray this prayer. You need a hall pass. You need a ticket to get to heaven one day. Doesn't matter what you do until you get to heaven. You need this ticket. Pray this prayer. Repeat after me. Do this deal, and you're fine. It's such an affront to God that we have reduced Christianity, diluted Christianity down to a series of rites and rituals. when the basics of it is, and all those things can help us get to the place that we need to be, but if Christianity wasn't explained to you as Jesus wants you to follow him, Jesus wants you to lock your eyes on him and not take your eyes off of him, and by his Spirit you will have the strength and the grace and the ability to do as he's called you to do, but you're going to have to walk in step with his Spirit. Salvation is not a prayer. It's not a rite. It's not a ritual. It's not a ceremony. Salvation is surrendering to Jesus, unfollowing everything but him, locking your eyes on him, committing to him, and saying, I am gonna follow Jesus. Nothing else matters. And as you follow him, you'll do what he says you should do. You'll go where he says you should go. You'll lay aside anything that is going to hinder you from following him. You will be where he wants you to be. Because followers follow. Followers end up where their leader takes them. You know, if you're following someone, you always have your eyes on them. If someone were to say, I'm following so-and-so, but I haven't seen him in a while, you're not following them. You're lost if they're your leader and they're nowhere in sight. Here's the thing. Jesus never leaves us. He always pumps the brakes to make sure that we keep up. But the reality of it is a lot of us just aren't following Jesus. And it doesn't matter what prayer you pray, doesn't matter what church you go to, doesn't matter how you were baptized, how many times you take communion, none of that stuff matters. It doesn't matter what altar you prayed at. It doesn't matter what church your membership is at. It comes down to, are you following Jesus? Now listen, I believe if you surrender to Jesus, you're eternally secure in his arms. He is not going to forsake you. He's not going to cut you loose. But if you really are a Christian, then you have surrendered and you are following Jesus. And the proof of your faith is you are step by step. You are in step with Jesus. You are right on his heels. And where he's at, you'll be right there with him. And where you're at, he's right there with you too. So what does it mean to be a Christian? It means you follow Jesus. Followers follow. If you're not following Jesus, what are you waiting on? He's here to meet you. And he'll lead you. And he'll never, ever, ever leave you behind or lead you astray. Thanks for joining us for this video today. If you appreciate this one, would you share it? Let everybody know that you're a Jesus follower and you're going where he's going and you're all about what he's all about. And let's make sure people know that to be a Christian, it's pretty simple. It's about following Jesus. God bless. Have a great rest of your day.